Colonel Rich Outzen is a geopolitical consultant and a retired U.S. diplomat who has served as an advisor to several secretaries of state. He's also a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council in Turkey. He joins us now from Washington. Colonel, Russian forces are advancing on Bakhmut, and the Wagner group says the city is practically surrounded, yet the Ukrainian military is still holding its ground. Why is Bakhmut so critical when the city itself has essentially been destroyed?
Well, Bakhmut has both practical and symbolic value. The practical value is that it is very near the boundaries of Donetsk-Luhansk area. So this is sort of the core area that the Russian forces have been aiming to really control and to tear away from, and ultimately probably annex from Ukraine. So reaching the sort of the edges administratively of this area can be represented as achievement of an important operational goal. Symbolically, because there's been such a big battle developing over the winter in that place, it would be one of the few cases since the initial Russian invasion where they've successfully seized territory that was contested by the Ukrainians. Now, Bakhmut itself is unremarkable in terms of strategic value, and it's not a major city within Ukraine like taking Kyiv or Odessa or some of these other things. It would be a major blow politically, but it's an important operational victory if the Russians can get it. The question, of course, is at what cost? And I think at the beginning of winter, many of us who are following the war expected a very large scale Russian offensive. This really is not much of a gain for all of the manpower, the ammunition, and the time that the Russians have put into it. So it might be considered, if it does fall, and even the Ukrainians are saying that holding on to Bakhmut at this point is becoming much more tenuous. If it is a victory of sorts for the Russians, it would be what we would call a Pyrrhic victory. A victory being something that you accomplish, but at not an acceptable cost.
So, what would be the purpose of Ukraine continuing to hold out in Bakhmut? Is this about trying to wear down the Russian military?
I think that's part of it. I mean, obviously, when you're defending your national territory, you don't really want to give up any of it against an aggressor. But there are times when it's smarter to pull out and cede territory. In this case, though, as Ubay mentioned in his report, the fact that there is in the works a major counteroffensive from the Ukrainians for spring and probably lasting into the summer, every bit of Russian strength that you can sap, every casualty, every damage to their armored vehicles, every loss of manpower means that they're going to be less capable of defending. The Russians are going to be less capable of defending when the Ukrainian counteroffensive comes. Now, I watch, we get reports every morning through a network of academics who follow the fighting in Ukraine. You know, the number of Russians killed, the number of Russian armored vehicles destroyed. It's been significant. I mean, every day we're talking about hundreds of casualties, and on some days, into the thousands. So they are, Russia's a large country. It's got a large military. I don't want to say they're exhausting themselves, but they are definitely sapping their offensive capabilities. And if indeed this defensive Bakhmut succeeds in drawing out this Russian strength and punishing them for the ground that they take, it will be a very important transition point as Ukraine looks to launch its own offensive in a couple of weeks or months.
All right, we'll leave it there. Colonel Rich Outzen joining us from Washington. Thank you.